A new poll shows sentiments of racial discrimination have dipped, with a greater portion of people in Singapore feeling that racial and religious harmony is high in the country. The insights are from a 2024 survey by the Institute of Policy Studies and advocacy body OnePeople.sg. And it shows improvement from previous studies in 2013 and 2018. Let's take a closer look. About 2/3 of respondents rate racial and religious harmony in Singapore as high or very high. This is up from slightly more than half in 2018. Interestingly, seniors were more likely to indicate this compared to young people. Sentiments of distrust in other racial groups have also improved. It is now about 1 in 5 people compared to more than 2 in 5 in 2013. However, the proportion of people with at least one close friend of another race took a slight dip in 2024 compared to 2018.
The decrease in cross-racial friendships is something we should pay close attention to because it occurs on the background of an overall reduction in the number of close friends that all of us have, regardless of race, language, or religion. This is a social issue that many cities in the world are facing. But for OPSG, it will impact how we then deal with the issue of how to form cross-racial friendships when the opportunity to form friendships in general may reduce over time.
Most of those polled also feel that Singapore is free from racial and religious tensions. More than 4 in 5 agree they do not experience such events in their daily lives. Discrimination in accessing public services like healthcare and education also remains rare. About 9 in 10 say they are treated about the same as other races. At the workplace, the overall reported experiences of discrimination also fell. But for those who did report it, one common example was using language that excluded them from conversations. Now, the latest findings also show that more than 7 in 10 believe that racial diversity will benefit Singapore. This is a 4.4% bump up from 2018. Younger respondents also likelier to express such sentiments, which the surveyors partly attribute to national education programs.
The hope would probably to first recognize that we are actually doing good in progress in terms of how we have seen and how we are perceiving racial harmony and whether it's beneficial for society across the years. So that has definitely improved, but obviously not to rest on our laurels and to continue progress because we still do see some gaps and areas for improvement.
And to maintain racial and religious harmony in Singapore, some grassroots organizations are coming up with initiatives to foster a culture of interfaith appreciation. One champions the next generation to be leaders on matters such as race and religion. Another uses biryani to warm tummies and hearts. Nikhil, Khattar and Chloe Teo finds out more.
This is Benjamin's favorite place in this gallery, where the Polytechnic student learns about the roots and beliefs of the different cultures found in Singapore. With that understanding, coupled with a bad experience of racism during an internship, he was motivated to join non-profit Roses of Peace initiative to become a harmony champion.
It allows me to understand how I want to take a step further and to foster social cohesion in Singapore, and also to minimize racism in working environments and all. So that's why I decided to take up the challenge of being the harmony champion with my institution.
As one of 135 harmony champions, Benjamin is taught to sensitively navigate Singapore's racial and religious challenges and given a deeper understanding through cultural visits and other workshops, including working with social media companies and content creators to create engaging content about the different cultures in Singapore. He also organizes other community projects for his polytechnic. Roses of Peace says social media is a key tool in strengthening racial and religious bonds, especially for youths who get much of their information online.
We've seen a lot more acceptance amongst the younger demographic, especially younger people who are quite open, who are quite frank, and who are also quite curious. And they need authentic sources. They need sources which are contextualized for Singapore's multiracial, multicultural society. And we saw that as an avenue for us to play a role to bridge that gap and to foster the social cohesion in Singapore between people of different race and religion.
Another organisation says meeting offline works wonders too, or what Khalid Moss fondly calls biryani diplomacy.
And you know, Khalid is also well known for his biryani. So what we'll do is that, now and then we will give biryani to our neighbours. We will share with them, and then we will call other religious organizations to come over. It's really about talking to one another, and it's something of the old that we need to, to bring to the young, and see. And you can have your TikToks and your social medias and whatnot, but it's also good to really have a personal touch to it, where you really converse.
He adds that such efforts to build these kinds of relationships are important, as we cannot take harmony for granted.
And joining me now with more on the Racial and Religious Harmony Survey is Dr. Matthew Matthews. He is head of the Social Lab at the Institute of Policy Studies. Dr. Matthews, welcome to the program. First of all, how can this study shape future policies for Singapore?
Well, I don't want to overstate what the study can do in terms of shaping future policies on race and religion. But really, the purpose of the study was to provide a kind of comprehensive assessment of how we're doing when it comes to racial and religious harmony within Singapore, and where we can find gaps, which will happen over time as we keep measuring these different indicators. That's where intervention is necessary. So, for instance, for the last two waves, we noticed that there was a significant portion of minorities who feel discriminated at work. And I'm sure that different bodies, organizations, policymakers took note of that. And we have had a lot more in terms of public awareness, programs, even policy to combat workplace discrimination. So as future studies show gaps, these will be places that more programming can come in.
As the report said, Dr. Matthews, these are indicators that provide a clearer picture of Singapore's progress in maintaining harmony and inclusivity. But where do we stand against other countries? How does Singapore compare to other multi-ethnic and multi-religious societies in the world?
Well, we don't have comparable data on every indicator, so we can't really make those apple-to-apple comparisons. But what is very clear, compared to many parts of the world, is that in Singapore, less than 10% of minorities feel they're treated worse than those of other races, especially when it comes to public services. So whether it's the police, the courts, the healthcare system, social services. And this is a struggle in many countries as you read the experiences of minorities. Law enforcement, the courts may inordinately pick on minorities, punish them harshly. Social services and healthcare may not be sensitive to the needs of minorities. But in Singapore, this is really not the lived-in experience of many minorities, and that's very clear in the survey. Also in terms of incidences where people get hurt because of racial and religious offense, it's very small here. It doesn't happen frequently here. And if you read and you follow developments in many other countries, there's a lot more places where there are violent episodes. There is a serious conflict between different groups, and we're very fortunate we don't have that here.
And as more interracial and interreligious take place, how will race and religious relations change?
Of course, there will be more acceptance of people from different ethnic and religious backgrounds. I mean, to marry someone from another background, to accept them into your family, that's quite a high level of openness. So you'd expect in these cases there will be more interaction, more appreciation of diversity. But that does not mean that there will be no tension. Just the fact that such inter-ethnic and inter-religious marriages do come about, there will also be friction, at least initially, when families try to come to accept some of those differences. But over time, many of that will change, and I think inter-ethnic ties will become stronger.
And then, as the report found, Dr. Matthews, sentiments of distrust of someone from another race appears to have gone down, according to the survey. What implications does this have for Singapore's workplace, though?
Well, we asked very specifically if you can trust people from another race in a crisis situation. And I think and most agree that is possible. But, what's apparent is crisis may not be the kind of trust that you have in an everyday relationship. For instance, the trust that you'll perform well at work. So there's another trust to consider. But to your question on the workplace, there are questions in the study that indicate that more Singaporeans do not believe in making race a criteria when it comes to hiring. And that will be very important if people hold that value. That I think that will make it very, very clear to people that if you're going to pursue and reduce discrimination, we cannot hold that idea that race is a consideration for work.
So there is a significant improvement in sentiments, but how else can Singaporeans and the government keep improving on race relations?
Well, one area which is improving, but there's still a lot of scope for improvement, is willingness to meet and get to know people of other races. That willingness to ask, to learn the cultures of others. It's about 4 in 10 now who agree or strongly agree to this. It's really not a priority to many. And of course, this idea about building friendships with those who are from another racial or religious background. But there's a lot to be gained from this. There's a lot to be gained when we learn about some other culture, we develop an appreciation, we learn how to be sensitive to different cultural needs and how to interact in a way which is respectful. All this goes a long way to improve racial ties and keep us cohesive as a society, even when there are situations which may threaten such harmony.
All right, Dr. Matthews, appreciate that. Thanks for unpacking the research findings for us. Dr. Matthew Matthews there from the Institute of Policy Studies.